If Google plus YouTube does not equal what you're doing on Facebook and Instagram, you're probably missing out. Like those, they should be equal, or with some brands, Google and YouTube should be more of your budget just because of the opportunities that are there.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about smart Google ads with really two of the smartest Google ad managers in the business. I am biased, but I think my opinion still holds true. So we got Matt Slaymaker, Savannah Knight. We're going to talk about smart Google ads and how we can use it to grow people's businesses. We're going to have some fun while we do it. So as we kind of set up this conversation, I think it's important to look at Google and understand just what a behemoth it is. And there's really never been anything like Google in the history of commerce or marketing. And so just a couple of stats that I know you guys know. We're just going to lay it out there to kind of set the stage for this conversation. So Google has 9 products with over 1 billion users. So you got Google Search, which is a behemoth, 87% market share. You got YouTube, which is by far the largest video sharing site and the number 2 search engine. So more searches conducted on YouTube than on any other search engine. You got Gmail, the most popular email client. You got the Google Display Network, which is 90% of the web. You got Chrome, which is the most popular browser. So we say all of that just to say the tools, the data, the opportunities that are on Google for business owners to grow, we've really never had anything like it before. And so we're Google ad nerds. We'll try to make this strategic and not super nerdy, but just lots of opportunities. So excited to unpack that. I want you guys to talk a little bit about the personal aspect behind Google Ads. So I'm gonna start with you, Matt.
Yeah.
So your nickname, your last name was Slaymaker, which when I first saw your name, I was like, is that a real last name? Did he make that up just to sound intimidating?
Just put it on the resume. Yeah.
But you are Slaymaker, and your nickname for people that don't know, what is your nickname?
I didn't come up with it, but it's Slaymaker the Playmaker. When I played Little League football, one of the moms, she was amazing. She had so much energy, and anytime I would make a tackle, which was few and far between, because I was the smallest guy on the team, she would be like, Slaymaker the Playmaker, that's my boy. I'm like, all right.
But it wasn't your mom. It was
No. My mom was sitting there pretty quiet. But
that's hilarious. So Slaymaker the Playmaker, that name has stuck. We call you that all the time. And it is funny, I mentioned this one time internally, but I was like jotting your name down in Apple Notes, and Apple Notes auto-corrected Slaymaker to Playmaker. I'm like, even Apple knows, right? Yep. So let's talk about why do you like managing Google Ads? Because my guess is back in those early formative years when people were calling you Slaymaker the Playmaker, you weren't like, this football thing is fun, but one day I will be a world-class Google Ads manager.
No, not at all. When I started off, like middle school, high school, I was set. I wanted to be a vet. That was my number one thing. So I went to Colorado State University. That was a great vet school, and that was my goal. But quickly, early on, I realized that really wasn't for me. I hated chemistry. Biology was too hard.
I hated animals.
Yeah, still love animals. But so I learned that when I went to business school, I did all the different types of business, finance, accounting, marketing, and I hated everything but marketing. Marketing allowed you to be creative, and there's so many different ways to solve the same problem, which I really liked. And I also minored in statistics, so I just love data. And unlike anyone else who takes statistics because they have to, I took statistics as I love seeing trends and numbers and everything like that. So for me, Google Ads was a perfect marriage of those, marketing and statistics, and I get to play with data every day.
I love it, and that really is like the perfect, that is Google Ads, right? There's this element of creativity, strategy, but also you gotta love the data. And there's plenty of data to manipulate and stuff there too. So awesome, Slaymaker the Playmaker. We got Savannah, which I don't know that I've ever worked with someone where everybody on the team was like, whoa, Savannah's amazing. She's just fantastic. And I mentioned this in your official intro, but I've also never met someone, especially someone that's got this like quiet confidence like you, that everyone just calls you a badass. Why is that? What is it about Savannah? People don't just say she's tough or she's great, but they call you a badass all the time. Do you like whisper that in people's ears, or they come up with it naturally?
Yeah, I really don't know, but it's kind of followed me around. So. I go with it.
It's awesome. So we're so glad to have you on the team. You run some of the most successful YouTube campaigns we have. You set the initial record for Performance Max inside of OMG, so you know your stuff. What about you though? When did you realize, hey, Google Ads, this could be kind of fun. Like I could be really good at this.
Yep. In college, I actually majored in marketing. So I was always kind of like into it. And then after I graduated, traveled for a while, and I just wanted a career change. So I started getting the Google certifications. And I actually fell in love. I loved Google Analytics, and I just like dove into it. So that's really how I got into it.
Yeah, that is one thing. One thing I've found, as I used to interview every candidate that joined OMG. I know I interviewed both of you guys. But I would always be curious how they would respond to Google Analytics. If someone's like, yeah, it's sort of interesting. I know we have to use it. And I'm like, it's probably not going to work out, right? But if they're like, oh, I love it. I love seeing the story, and I love what do the numbers tell us, and why does someone do what they do, and like just being fascinated with it is really important. And that's one thing I found is I think to be a good marketer, you've got to first be curious, right? You got to be curious about, why do people respond to this ad and not that ad? Why are people typing in that keyword and not a different keyword? And stuff like that. So.
I mean, in the first place for me, it was Google Analytics that got me hooked. Before I ever got started with Google Ads, my first internship was doing social media. And the tool that we had at our disposal for the most part was analytics. And I just thought it was so cool. Being able to see when people are coming, who they are, what they're interested in, all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was fascinating. I'm like, I want to do more with this.
Totally. And I've always been that way. I was always the weird kid growing up asking my friends, like, why do you wear Converse instead of Nike, right? Or I remember even asking people about their tire brands. I don't know. I was fascinated by brands and why people would choose one brand over the other. And I also loved infomercials. I remember the first time I saw the Ginsu knife commercial. One, I told my parents we should buy Ginsu knives. And then not too long after that, I was like, I wonder who did that. I wonder who made that commercial. It's always fascinated me to no end. So let's dive in a little bit and talk about some of the options within Google Ads. And I want to hear from your perspective, because you guys are in this day in and day out. You guys love numbers, you love the creativity, you just love Google Ads. So let's talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses, because one of the things we found is a lot of the clients that come to work with us at OMGcommerce, they're usually really good at something. Facebook, Instagram, maybe some other influencer marketing, something is really driving their business. But Google is just okay, right? And they've realized they've got opportunities that are untapped. So Google, like we talked about, it's a behemoth, it's huge, there's never been anything like it, there's nothing that compares to it right now. But it's not all super easy, right? So let's dive into some strengths and weaknesses a little bit. I think that'll be a good context. Let's start with the OG. Let's start with search. So let's talk strengths first. Let's be positive first, because Google's probably listening in. So search strengths, Matt.
Yeah.
What say you?
I can only really think of the strengths. I mean, to me, this is the highest level of intent that people can show. They're looking for your solutions. They're putting out their problem out there, and they're looking for solutions. And with search, you can get right in front of them with that. There's other great channels out there, which we're going to talk about: display, discovery, YouTube as well. But I mean, search, that's where people are searching for you. And first and foremost, I think that's where everyone should be, right?
Yeah, totally. So one thing I'm curious what you guys do, because I think this could be insightful for folks that are watching. I like to play around inside of Google search, because if you know what to look for and what to type in, what to pay attention to, there's a lot of research you can do just by typing into Google, right? Sure. So what are some of the things you pay attention to? If you're working on a strategy for a client or just for your own interests, what are some of the things you pay attention to on the search results page to try to get in the mind of a consumer, think strategically?
I always pay attention to what else is on the page. Is it just showing search results, or are there shopping carousels on there?
Yeah.
Is it showing the business name or images, things like that? So you've got to know how your ad is going to fit into that exact search results page.
Yeah. What else is on that page? 'Cause a lot of people just go straight to Google Ads, start creating the ad, choose their keywords and go. But you really need to think about, what else are people seeing? And in some ways, it's kind of like you're going to the aisle at the store, that you're going to put your product in. what does that shelf look like? What does the aisle look like? What does the space look like? How do we stand out? So that's a great perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, because it relates to that, the intent of that search, because every one is a little bit different. Like a how-to search and what are the benefits of this search versus people just looking for that particular product. Those are all super different. Yeah. They all seem very related, and they are, but where somebody is in terms of their buying process can be super different with each of those. There's like educational searches where they're kind of in that awareness stage, and then there's people who know exactly what they're looking for. Yeah. And some of those might work really well for you, some of them might not. So.
Yeah, I also love, Google is constantly learning and improving, and so some of the best machine learning scientists, AI scientists work for Google, and so I think if we understand that Google is always experimenting, and they're always looking at, when we display these results for this query, for this search, what are people clicking on? Right. And then based on what people click on or don't click on, Google's going to adjust what shows up in those search results. And that's why some searches have more videos that show up, because Google realizes, oh, when people type in that keyword, they want to see videos.
One example of that, it's like anytime you type in on Google how to tie a tie, one of the very first things that come up are YouTube videos of people, because they've realized, hey, it's easier to just show you how to. Reading a how-to step-by-step, that doesn't help me.
Take your right hand, form it like 360
I need to
degrees.
See this.
No chance I'm reading that and understanding. Yeah, so Google is always learning, and they're measuring things, right? They're measuring not only what are people clicking on, but what do they click on, and then what do they then go back and search the same thing again to click again, right? There's what's called a short click and a long click, right? Short click is when I click on the how to tie a tie, but it's just words, and I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. So I go back to Google, I type in how to tie a tie again, I watch a video. Now I click on that video, and then I'm done. That's a long click. Google's happy with that. They're happy if you don't come back, knowing that they probably answered your question. So another one that I remember, we used to work with this building materials company. So they sold hardware and even wood and decking materials online. When you search for deck builder, and I was not aware of this because I'm not a gamer, but when you type in deck builder, about half the results were for construction stuff, and the other half was for like, I don't know if it was D&D or something like that, but it was like people that were gamers, like because you're building a deck for a game, something like that. And so again, that's gonna allow you to, as you look at the search results, you can begin to understand, this is what people are looking for. And this is what Google thinks people are looking for this keyword. So then we can begin to shape our keywords. So now maybe we're not just gonna bid on deck builder because that's a little too broad. And I don't want the kids that are gamers. Or you could say, well, I'm gonna bid on deck builder, but I wanna layer in some audiences. I want, men over the age of 30, because they're probably going to be the ones that are, building things and not building D&D decks or whatever.
Hey, you never know.
You never know. You never know, man. I actually talked to a buddy of mine the other day, and he's like, I just tried D&D for the first time. It's awesome. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's all. I'm not judging at all. I mean, I was a little bit, but not like fully, not hardcore. But not everything is perfect. So we're, Matt, you sound a little bit like a Google fanboy a minute ago, which it's hard not to be in some ways. Like I am a fan. I've read all the Google books, like in the Plex and stuff, so I nerd out. I can tell, like, I know a shocking amount of Google history. I'm not sure if I'm proud of that or ashamed of that, but I know a lot. But it's not all good, right? It's not everything is perfect there. There's some things that Google does that frustrates me to no end. But what are some of the weaknesses of Google search?
I think with search specifically, they don't have that visual element incorporated. Like they're trying to with some image extensions and things like that.
But those don't show up that much, right? You got image extensions, and I never see them.
Yep. Yeah, so in today's day and age, I think the visual element is so important. So that's one thing that search doesn't have.
Yeah. But when they do show up, I mean, it makes such a difference.
It really does, yeah.
It really makes that ad just pop.
It does.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why they're not showing it more. I did, one of the newer things is now you got is it the favicon? Is that, I always forget how you pronounce that, but it's like the logo. Yeah. It's what shows up in the tab of your browser, but now the logo or the favicon shows up next to the search ad too, which is kind of cool, kind of a cool feature. Let's pivot and talk shopping just a little bit. And I don't want to go too deep into shopping, because shopping is one of those things where, first of all, you guys know that I love shopping. It's kind of the original for me. It just like gets really nerdy really fast. Like we can start talking about data feeds, and that's your cure for insomnia. But how do you feel about Google shopping? What's what do you like, not like about Google Shopping?
Yeah, you want to kick that off, Sarah?
Yeah, I love Google Shopping. I love of course, like I just said, the image elements that come into it. And you can compare the same product between so many buyers. Like with Amazon, it's probably going to be something from China or not the highest quality. But with Google, there's so many different people on there, so many different advertisers.
Yeah, what's really interesting, and so obviously, we did the smart Amazon e-commerce. I'm an Amazon fan too. I'm not going to dog it, but I remember I had kind of a bad experience buying a projector from Amazon, and it was some knockoff. I don't know what it was, but I hated it. And so now I found I do, even if I'm going to buy something on Amazon, I'll check Google first. I'll check those reviews, and I'm like, I want to buy a good brand. I want to buy some crazy, who knows what, from China. I want to buy a good brand. So I'll look on Google first.
Yeah, for me, you were saying about search that you feel like one of the weaknesses is a little bit less visual in nature. I feel like shopping helps accomplish that because everything that you see on shopping are the images of exactly what that product is going to look like. Right. So for me as a user, that's great because now I know what I'm getting essentially. Like I know that's what it's going to look like when I click on it and I can see the price right there. I can see the reviews right there, title, description, everything right there. So compared to search ads, you get a lot more information right at the outset, even though it's just little snippets of information.
Yeah, and the thing I love about Google Shopping is it just works. If you set, and there's some things you can do to make it not work. If your feed is not set up properly, you don't have good images, don't have good titles, don't have a good campaign structure. Like there's stuff you can do to screw it up, but you can do it like halfway, and it's still going to work, right? It's kind of like the Toyota of advertising. Like it's not necessarily flashy, No one's going to pull up to you driving your Toyota and you'd be like, whoa. How did you do that? How did you get a Toyota? Like that doesn't happen. But you have a Toyota, it never dies. It runs forever. That's kind of how I view Google Shopping. Like it just always works. So if you're running Google Shopping and it's not working, it's probably not Google Shopping's fault. It's probably your fault. It just works.
Brett literally has an analogy for everything. I never would have thought of that.
I just think in terms of analogies.
Yeah, that's great.
Works. So Google Shopping, we all love it. It's really great. Now, maybe a little more controversial. This is the cousin or the evil stepmother. I don't know what you call it, but Performance Max. How do we feel about Performance Max in this day and age? Who wants to go first?
I'm still on the fence about Performance Max, honestly. I like it. I like it because I've seen some great performance and there's so much reach with Performance Max, but I also like to see that performance and be able to like pinpoint it so I know like what to optimize for specifically,
I recall earlier we were talking about what we really fell in love with was the data part of it, being able to tell, what's working, what's not. And that's really the big factor with Performance Max that we just don't like all that much is it doesn't give us as much data. So just from that perspective, I don't like it as much, but like Savannah said, the good thing about Performance Max is the
results are there.
Performance, right? Yeah. So with that element of it, I've grown to trust it more. When I first started with it, I was like, I don't like where Google's going with this, but once you see the good results and you learn how to use it effectively, then it's like, all right, this could work.
You gotta embrace it. And we've kind of always had this philosophy at OMGcommerce that, hey, we're not going to test too early. Because even if we think about smart bidding, like target ROAS and target CPA and stuff, in the early days, they weren't that great, right? But now they're fantastic.
Right, if you test early, you're the guinea pig.
Exactly, yes. Which Google is known for that, right? Google, and this is one thing we've kind of learned is that, hey, when your Google reps are like, hey, you want to try this brand new thing in alpha stage, not even beta? You're like, well. So basically, you're going to learn from me then to improve this and make it where it's a viable product. But I don't mind the alpha stuff. Like if you've got a client who's like, no, I want to be cutting edge, bleeding edge, then we can do it. But when I first heard about Performance Max, hated the idea, just despised it. But we're like, well, we got to test it, right? If this is the future of Google Ads or if it's going to work or not work, we needed to know. So we started testing it. What's cool about both of you guys related to Performance Max is you set the record, first campaign to get to 10,000 a day on Performance Max, which was super cool. So as we looked at it, I was like, whoa. And not only that, but it didn't lean into just Google Shopping. It actually, that campaign had a ton of like YouTube exposure, which was super interesting because that advertiser was also spending a lot on YouTube. And then Matt, I think you hold the record for the highest spending group of campaigns Performance Max got up to like 35, 50,000 a day, something like that,
yeah.
which is huge. So yeah, lots of data there, but you gotta like mine it. You gotta like extract it. Google's holding on to it. We have heard Google's gonna make some more of that data available, but for now, if you run a script, you can pull out all that data to see kind of where your spend is going and performance at the channel level and stuff like that.
Right.
Oh, because it would probably be helpful, Performance Max, one of you guys give a quick definition of what Performance Max is for those that are like, what are these guys talking about?
Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, I think of Performance Max as the easiest way to be omni-channel present with Google Ads. So it's a very AI, machine learning focused campaign type. And it allows you to be present on search, shopping, display, discovery, and YouTube. So having full coverage of all the channels that are available all within one campaign type. And you're actually now able to launch a Performance Max campaign directly from Shopify itself. You don't even have to get into Google Ads. So I think one of the main goals of Performance Max from Google isn't just to move things more towards an AI direction. I think it's to make Google Ads more accessible to the general public. So you don't need to have this deep understanding of Google Ads and every single channel and all the strategies necessarily. Google thinks you can just launch a Performance Max campaign and get started there.
Right. Yeah, Larry Page even said years ago, he was just complaining internally about like, how hard it is to set up Google Ads, and he would say like, what if they just gave us their website? Couldn't we just take the website and go from there? Which really you can't fully do that. I mean, Google's becoming more and more automated. I'm still a firm believer, and I'm not just saying that because I own an agency, but I'm a firm believer that like smart humans who think strategically and understand marketing and understand creative, paired with good AI, that's where real success happens. And that's true whether it's an internal marketing team or agency or freelancer, whoever. Like I think that combination is always going to work. But Google wants to automate things. They want to automate more and more. And I think for some people, it's going to work okay.
Yeah, we can already see that in the accounts. Like, if like with app placements, for example, if you're getting a lot of clicks on that app, Google, their automation is going to go to that because they're like, oh, people are clicking, but they're not necessarily converting.
Right,
so it's going to start spending a lot. So we have to have that human interaction to be like, to see that difference.
If we can kind of guide the machine a little bit, right? I remember my buddy Mike Rhodes talking about how, this was years ago, so the AI has grown, but he's like, the AI is like a toddler or 5, like you got to kind of point, but like a genius one. Anyway, I don't know how that analogy works exactly, but you got to like kind of guide the AI a little bit, guide the machines to get really good results. So that's Google Shopping and Performance Max. Let's talk YouTube a little bit. We're kind of known for YouTube, so we're YouTube fanatics, I would say. But YouTube doesn't always work. Like there are issues there as well. But what do you guys think? Strengths and weaknesses of YouTube. What do you like? What do you not like about YouTube?
One thing I like about YouTube, I'm going to compare it to TV.
Yeah.
With TV, you don't know who's seeing your ads. You just put it there and hope for the best. But with YouTube, you can actually see who's viewing your ads, who's clicking, and then use those audiences and target them in other channels as well. So there's just so much power if you start with YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like she said, how YouTube's basically the evolution of TV. I kind of think of display and discovery as the evolution of like flyers, billboards, things like that. Just the tracking and the availability of the data, it really informs us in terms of our decision making. And then just the ability, with YouTube, we're only paying for actual interactions. So as opposed to just any time our ad shows, which might not actually have had an impact, we're only really paying if somebody views that YouTube video or clicks on it. So that's great.
It is great, yeah. So we're paying for engagement, we're paying for a true view, which is the type of ad that we run, YouTube True View. I love that too because I got my start doing radio and TV for local businesses. And I remember the reason I fell in love with TV, I actually got my start in radio, but the reason I fell in love with TV, so I remember talking to a few people. One was a furniture store, and I was like, hey, I was trying to sell them radio. And they're like, you know what, I don't really like radio, but we do TV because every time we run TV, people come in and they say they saw it. I remember this other guy who said once he started TV, he would go to the gas station and people would stop and be like, hey, I've seen you on TV. Like I've seen you on your commercial. He was like a pool guy or whatever, like builds pools. And so that just got me super excited about, there's this celebrity, this trust that you can build with video that you can't really build anywhere else. And if you do it right, if the message is good, the targeting is good, all that, Like it's compelling. It tells the story, gets people to take action.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about YouTube compared to every other channel is I feel like this is your moment in the spotlight compared to everything else. So like with display ads, you can be on a website where multiple display ads pop up at the same time. When it's a search ad or a shopping ad, there's various search ads and shopping ads showing together. So you're kind of competing for that user's attention. But when it's that YouTube ad, you've at least got 5 seconds before somebody skips where you can hook them in, and then for the next minute, 2 minutes, however long your video is, here's your chance to really stand out to that person.
Yeah, and there's just been so many brands. Purple Mattress is an example, Squatty Potty is an example, Dr. Squatch, and we know a lot of the people behind some of those campaigns. We've had several clients where YouTube is like the driving force that really helped that brand scale. It's not always the same in terms of measurement and stuff, so we can get into that in a minute, but I think I cut you off. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say another one of my favorite things about YouTube is that everyone is on YouTube. Like
Everybody.
everyone, all over the world. There's really no
Mom,
YouTube
your grandma,
competition.
like they're all consuming YouTube.
Yeah, and it's not as hard to get onto YouTube, I think, as people think.
Right.
You do have to have good creative, of course, but one of my clients, their best performing video is just them walking through the warehouse.
Yes.
You know, and they've spent so much money on videos before that didn't do very well. So.
Yeah. So that ad's a great one. I actually show that in the course. You know, we got our buddy Ryan McKenzie from True Earth, which I know he's gonna love that I mentioned him in this. But his first video that I think we racked up like 7 million paid views, he shot it all on his MacBook, and it's just like stock images and him. He's got a great voice, but he's just talking, and it crushed it. So the video's important. It's got to be compelling. It's got to hook people in the first place. Like it's got to do all the things that we talk about. But it doesn't have to cost you $30,000.
Yeah, I think there's this perception that people have just because of all the TV ads that they've seen in the past that with YouTube, it also has to feel like it has to be super well produced and be super expensive to make. But we've told clients before, hey, if you've got like a solid iPhone camera, like that can sometimes be enough. And a lot of the best performing videos that we actually use on YouTube, especially for remarketing, are just videos where the user takes it themselves with the selfie, where they're talking to the camera. I love this product because of blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it doesn't have to be super expensive to create.
Because it's got to feel authentic. It's got to be believable. Someone has to look at that and say, maybe I believe what you're saying. And so the more authentic it looks, the better. And we're starting to see some results with YouTube Shorts now. Matt's on the native account. They've been doing really well with YouTube Shorts. And usually what works well for YouTube Shorts is like influencer type content, right? Or UGC, user generated content. And so sometimes that's very simple. But if it tells a story, overcomes an objection, makes you want the product, maybe demonstrates it, that can work really, really well. So what about some weaknesses though? Because YouTube, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You talked about how with search, there's really no downside. I know you're a little more negative on search, which is okay. But it's kind of hard to go wrong. Like Google Shopping can't really go wrong. It's gonna work unless you really screw things up. But YouTube can go wrong, and YouTube is not always easy. What are some of the weaknesses or things you would just point out about YouTube?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's not the best way to drive traffic to your website because the cost per clicks are going to be higher than other channels. So if you don't have a really good YouTube video that drives views and really gets people wanting to search for your brand, then it's not going to be that effective for you. So I think you do have to have...
You're still going to get way more views than you will get clicks,
exactly.
Even if you've got a strong call to action. So does that video make people want to come back and search later?
Right. And I think you've got to have all those elements tied in. You got to be reaching the right people with the right video at the right time with the right product. And if you're not doing those things, then it might not work out all that well.
Yeah. I think with YouTube, like with search, people are coming to you, they're actually searching for what you sell. But with YouTube, you have to go to them and you have to be convincing. So if you don't have that convincing element, it's going to be really hard on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about search as like someone coming to you and saying, hey, do you sell skin cream? Yes, I do. It's right here. Like, that's the best interaction. Where YouTube, you're like going out in the streets and you're like, hey, do you want some skin cream? And so you've got to, like, everything's got to be right there. And the other thing about YouTube is, it takes a little bit of time, right? With search and shopping, really quickly, right? It should convert at a high rate, so you get 50 or 100 clicks, like you better see some conversions. With YouTube, you got to experiment a little bit, and you got to get a lot of views and a lot of clicks, and because it's usually very early in the buying process and the buying journey, it takes some time. So you got to kind of have that stomach for testing. It will work, and it can like take you to the moon, but it's not going to be necessarily right out of the gates successful. And I think that scares some people away.
Yeah, it does take a lot of investment. But YouTube is the long game. I think a lot of people get into it with the wrong mindset, but YouTube's definitely the long game.
Yeah, for sure. And once things start rolling, like it can get really exciting, but it does take a little bit of time. And there is that, you've got to kind of embrace the halo effect, right? Where we're going to see some direct conversions, but it's going to go beyond that. And I always think back to the hair care brand. I think you and I were working on that one together. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And they were spending $300,000 or $400,000 a month on YouTube. It was going well. CPAs were good. Like everything was great. And then tracking went down. iOS 14.5. Curse you, Apple at iOS 14. You ruined everything. Anyway, things are better. Well, I'm not super bitter. I have fits of rage on occasion, but it's fine. I'm still an Apple fan. So they just paused everything for a little while to kind of figure out tracking and stuff. And it was probably the right move at the time. But we managed this brand's Amazon as well. And as we were paying attention to Amazon, we started measuring their brand search popularity. So there's some tools where we can see like how popular is their brand term. And over the course of a few weeks, it like dropped in half a number of people searching for that brand. And so that's the kind of power of YouTube. Yes, we're going to see direct conversions. Yes, we're going to see some clicks. Maybe the CPCs are a little high, depends. You're going to see a lot of views, but the real impact is overall lift. So you got to kind of have everything right? The right ad, the right approach, the right mindset to think full funnel and not just give me a conversion today type of thing. So we're gonna save my least favorite for last. But this is one thing I like about you, Matt Slaymaker. You try to preach to me how I should like display and discovery more, and I do like it more. I'm more of a YouTube guy. Give me my option to scale a business. I'm going to choose YouTube. But you've convinced me to a certain degree. We need more display and discovery. But what do you guys think? Display and discovery, strengths, weaknesses. What's your take? And why do you love it so much, Matt?
I love it because it works. I mean, I think display and discovery is such an effective way to get back in front of people, one, who've engaged with your business, but just like YouTube, getting in front of people who are already searching for this. Now, I mean, the weakness, like Savannah just said about YouTube, is that these people aren't on search actively searching for it right now. You do have to keep that in mind. And for that reason, you could see similar performance for this that you do see for YouTube, right? But just like how billboards, flyers, all that kind of stuff has been around forever and it works and people use it, display and discovery works too. And it's even better than all that stuff because instead of just putting up a sign on a road and hoping people who drive by it see it and take action on it, with this, we can target the exact people that we want to based on demographics, interest, things like that. So I'm very bullish on it, and it's really just because it works well.
Yeah. I hear people say, like, I tell them I work on Google. They're like, oh, so you're the ones following me around. And it's yeah, but they work, right. Or else we wouldn't still be doing it. So
right, and one thing, just to get on a soapbox a little bit, and this probably doesn't apply a whole lot to the people watching this, because I think everybody, is advertisers, but you got to see ads. Or this is what I tell my kids too, because I'm like, well, one, like ads are putting food on the table right now as we speak. But you're going to see ads, right? The internet is funded by ads. TV, the NFL game that you love to watch, it's because people are running ads. So do you want to see relevant ads, or do you want to see irrelevant ads? And that's what remarketing basically is. And so I remember years ago, a client of ours, and this was like, I don't know, 2010 or something, so forever ago. He's like, hey, I think you're more likely to get hit by lightning than click a display ad. And I'm like, well, that's me. I like the drama. I like the analogy. That's maybe a little much, but it has gotten better, right? And there was the kind of the early days of the internet where display ads were just obnoxious and annoying, and like, why am I seeing this? But now, display and especially discovery, the ads that show up on, and I am a fan of discovery. I'll give you that, man. I'm a fan of all of it, but ads that show up in your YouTube feed and inside of Gmail and in the Google app on your mobile device. And they look beautiful, like you can do some branding. They fit for remarketing or bought X, not Y campaigns and stuff like that. So actually, let's talk about that, because I think that's something that a lot of people miss. One thing I talk about a lot when I'm speaking at events is remarketing is something that everybody's doing, and most people suck at it.
Yeah.
As we analyze remarketing campaigns, they're almost always bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you like about remarketing on the display network?
Well, and to answer kind of your question, the thought that you just had there of like a lot of times when we look at an account, people are doing it bad. I think the main reason for that is because they're treating every user that's come to their business the same way. And that's just not the case. If you're just targeting everyone who visited your website, you're missing out on so many segmentation opportunities because one user who visited might be super, super interested and is ready to buy, and another happened upon your website on accident, right? So if we're lumping them all together, that's never going to work. What was your?
Well, yeah, no, that's perfect. So we're segmenting. You know, one thing to talk about is like recency. Hey, you want to strike while the iron's hot, hit people in those first few minutes or first few days. I mean, but let's talk about this. We'll kind of we'll wrap up the video with this because I think we'll get technical for just a second. There's this concept, and actually I learned this from Ezra first, or this name for sure from Ezra, but the bought X not Y campaigns. Yeah. So which one of you guys want to explain what a bought X not Y campaign is?
Okay, cool. So bought X not Y is like cross-selling. So if someone's bought something from your brand and you know they already like this thing, then you're selling them on your other products as well, and it can be really powerful. They might not know these other products exist, but they already like your brand, so they want to buy other things too. Yeah, so let's take like Ezra's brand, Overtone, for example. They sell all sorts of products that complement each other. They primarily sell this coloring conditioner. So you put it in and it dyes your hair a particular color. But they also sell a daily conditioner, which maintains that color. Yeah. So if you want to keep it that color, you need the daily conditioner too. Now, if you want to get rid of that color, start to fade it, they have a toning conditioner or a color fading shampoo. So somebody who originally bought that color conditioner now could also benefit from all these other cross-sell opportunities, and that's where it's super handy.
And that's where it's great to kind of play with the timing of it. So once someone has bought that coloring conditioner, now they're enjoying that their hair is pink or blue or green or whatever the case is, maybe we hit them up in 2 weeks or maybe a month, and we're testing when are they most open to this message of, hey, buy this conditioner to make your hair healthier and the color stays longer and all those things. Like that's something that not a lot of people are doing, and I think we are and we run email and SMS campaigns as well, and some brands are running email campaigns to, hey, 2 weeks or 30 days after they buy the coloring conditioner, we'll mention the everyday conditioner. But we got to remember that only 30 to 50% of people open emails, 50% at the high level. Yeah. So display allows us to reach more people and get this where they maybe aren't opening emails. So anyway, I know that we can talk about Google Ads forever, like until we just can't talk anymore. But I feel like this is a pretty good stopping point. Like this is really good stuff. I'm thankful for you guys and how good you are at this and how excited you are about this. And hey, hopefully we inspired someone to take another look at Google Ads or to say, maybe we're not doing enough with Google Ads. Because here's my belief, and I want to see if you guys agree.
It's available to you, but like Savannah said, you should probably have both.
Yeah, gotta have both. Spend the money wherever it's working, but just know if Google is like just a tiny bit of your marketing mix, you're missing out. Yeah. You're missing out. You gotta beef it up. All right, awesome. Go Google.